So thank you to everybody for joining the call today, and thank you to Matt Ferris and Michelle Parnham from Pelican Procurement for joining us today and leading on the session. Just to give an introduction, Matt is the lead pie product manager and Michelle is head of sales at Pelican. As I've already mentioned, we will be recording the session. It is very interactive, so please feel free to ask questions. Oh, hello. Please feel free to ask questions. We've got the chat function on the screen, and also just raise your hand if you've got anything that you want to kind of interject with throughout today. And the session title for today's roundtable is to discover the latest technology to help reduce waste and carbon footprint, which I think we'll all agree is very important in our sector at the moment. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Matt and Michelle, and thank you to everybody for joining us today.
Thanks, Sarah. So we're going to take some time today to go through some of the sustainability tools that are available at Pelican, I think. But before Matt and I start the presentation, it'd be really interesting for us to understand how are you measuring food waste today? Is that something that you are doing, or you're not doing terribly well in a very manual way, or are you looking for new tools that can support your university? And also CO2e, is that something that you're currently tracking, measuring, would like to measure? Just be great to get some feedback before we start the sessions, and obviously we can take questions as we go.
I'll start if you want. Yeah, we measure quite a lot at our university, but it is a bit of a fag packet kind of thing, but you know, it's not nothing too scientific. Okay.
And so, David, are you looking for tools to support you in both of these areas?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for your feedback. Really appreciate it. Lorraine and Katie, is it something that you're doing today or would like to do?
Yeah, I mean, mostly we have collated information on spreadsheets, to be honest, and CO2 is a particular challenge. So we run both hospitality and retail solutions, and we struggle to find one piece of software that would specialize in both for that particular thing. So we can get stuff that will do hospitality data, or we get stuff that will do retail data. We don't get stuff that can do both.
Okay, that's interesting.
And yeah, and in terms of the food waste, so we do measure quite a lot, and we've tried certain things. It's just none of it's ever really stuck. So we tend to measure it over certain periods of time. And then we'll use that as baseline data and then see if we've made an improvement kind of for a similar period over another at a different time, because it is a very manual process at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. Lorraine, is it the same for yourself?
We have problems with the food waste being contaminated most of the time because of the students. We are going out to tender for our waste early in the new year, and hoping that we'll find a better solution then. But at the moment, it's normally contaminated. The only place probably that doesn't contaminate it is the hotel.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, then, well, I think we'll get started, and we'll obviously take you through a little bit about ourselves and get into the nitty-gritty of the tools that we can help to support your goals and sustainability kind of credentials. So thank you for the introduction, Sarah. So as Sarah said, my name is Michelle Parnham. I'm head of sales at Pelican. I'm responsible for the HE sector, NHS, and also care and hospitality.
Yeah, so as already said, my name is Matt Ferris. I'm the lead pie product manager, so I look after the pie application that we have at Pelican, listening to customers and responding to the requirements that they talk to us about, and been here now for 10 years, so a little while. If I move on, so Michelle, do you want to talk a little bit more about Pelican?
Yeah, thank you. So for those that may or may not have looked at Pelican or been to our offices or visited us on stands when we've been at Cubo, Pelican offer a bespoke procurement service, so very different to what's out in the marketplace currently. We are there to be your supply chain manager, and we also have a system called Pi, which we're obviously going to show you today. We've been in the marketplace over 35 years, so food procurement is our specialism, and we are supporting a number of organisations within the HE sector. What we'll show you today is part of our systems, and our procurement services are all self-funded, so it wouldn't actually be something that you would have to pay for to use some of these tools. So we are here to support you with your full procurement activity across food and non-food, and we're also here to help support you meet your sustainability goals. Just to give you a little bit of a flavour of some of the organisations that we work with in the HE sector, I'm sure you know lots of colleagues from various universities, but we've very recently been awarded a contract with University of Stirling and also Lancaster University.
Okay, so the Pi application has grown a lot over the years and now does an awful lot of things. And what I wanted to do is just spend a few minutes talking about the various features and functionality that's available on the site. Just to be clear, David and Katie, Lorraine, are you aware of Pi? Have you heard of the system before?
I've not personally. Sorry.
No, I haven't.
Okay. Lorraine, are you from Stirling?
Yes.
Yes, so hopefully
Yes.
you are aware, because you guys are just onboarding at the moment, aren't you? So you're beginning that journey.
I haven't heard about it at all yet.
Oh, okay. All right. So I will just explain a little bit more about what the Pi system is. So the Pi system is a procurement system, and it does an awful lot of things, but fundamentally it's designed to provide support to finance, operations, catering and procurement, and it's a holistic system. What I mean by that is it provides a number of modules, and those modules all talk to each other. Okay, so they're not standalone applications, they all communicate with each other. So starting at the top of the wheel, 12 o'clock, we have a supplier ordering module. What this means is that you can place orders through the Pi system directly to your suppliers. And as part of the procurement process that we do, we end up with an approved list of suppliers and approved list of products. And it's that list of products that are available to order within the ordering module. Once those orders have been placed, you can optionally choose to book in and record receipt of those deliveries. And once you've done so, what we then do is we present that information, and we also get the invoices back from the suppliers. So the order goes to the supplier electronically, then we receive an electronic copy of the invoice. So we're removing all of the hard copy paperwork, and we also provide payment, so AP processing. So this is your accounts payable process. We pay your suppliers on behalf. We collect the monies from you, and then we pay all of your suppliers and manage that process. Okay. Lots of reporting and intelligence functionality in the system, so you can look at detail of all of the various purchases you're making, down to product, site, category level. We've got a budget management module, which enables you to control budgets and track budgets. Stock management, so you carry out your stock checks with EPOS integration capability there as well.
Matt, can I just stop you? I've just got a question just before you move on. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Katie's just asked, is every supplier on an EDI catalogue? Sorry, is every supplier on EDI for catalogue management?
No. So we have different flavors of EDI. So in terms of invoicing, all of the invoices that we receive electronically. So we get that via EDI. In terms of the catalogue management itself, this is an activity that Pelican do on your behalf. So we do all the grunt work to ensure that the catalogues are maintained and the price lists are updated on your behalf. So this isn't an activity that we expect a client to do. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah?
Sorry.
Okay. No, please do answer questions. It makes the session much more interactive. So thank you for that. So the menu engineering section, this is where you build recipes in the system, and we've got lots of tools to enable you to build that, and I will show you some of that later on in today's session. But fundamentally, the menu engineering enables you to build a recipe in the system using your inventory of products, which we load on your behalf. Once that recipe is built, we then track the cost of that recipe. We provide allergen information, nutritional information, and now we also provide the carbon footprint of that recipe. And as I said, I'll go on and explain that a little bit more. We've got an internal ordering and production planning module. So this is the ability for you to move products and recipes around your organization, and controls to help you do that. A lot of universities that we work with, they often have paper-based or kind of spreadsheets or email stuff that's going around the organization managing that process. So that's been a big success. It's something that a lot of universities enjoy. Flash reporting, so this gives you the ability to get an accurate GP very quickly in terms of the performance of your various food outlets. And finally, the inventory module. And the inventory module really is something that powers a lot of this stuff. So the inventory is self-managed and self-built. As you order items or as they're invoiced, that inventory builds up automatically, and we track the prices of all of your products in the inventory. So when you add a product in a recipe, we can obtain the price, and when you start doing a stock count, counting those items, we can look at the latest price as well. So the idea being with all of this is that we do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, so that you're not having to manage catalogs, you're not having to process invoice payments yourself, and the tools, as I said, are all available as part of the service that we deliver. Any questions on any of that lot? And I know I've covered off an awful lot in a very short amount of time there, but does that kind of make sense in terms of the system's overall kind of scope?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Yep, seems to make sense.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure some of you have got systems that you're using at the moment in your organisation. There are a number of competitor systems that are out there that do similar things. I would argue that we've got the most fully fledged system available, and definitely something that's very complete and is enjoyed by lots of our customers. But happy to answer any further questions on that if you have any in the future. So today's session has got two main themes. So the first theme is about waste management, and the second is about carbon footprint analysis. So waste management, this actually came out initially from some of our NHS customers that we work with. So tracking waste in the NHS is a really important thing that they are mandated to do. So they asked us whether we could help them put something in place to make this process easier. So the waste management tools, this originally came out, as I said, from requirement from the NHS, but there's an organisation called WRAP that produces reports on this, and what they have calculated is that in the UK we produce 9.5 tonnes of food waste every year. That's once the food has left the farm. The waste cost is an estimated £19 billion, and this waste alone contributes to 25 million tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions. So it's a significant amount. Broken down by sector, the food service, which we belong to, of course, equates to about 12% of this total, which is 1.1 million. What the WRAP organisation have done, working with this Guardians of Grub website, what they have done is they've calculated that it's highly profitable by reducing waste. They estimate that every £1 you spend on waste reduction deliver an overall £14 worth of savings in your organisation. So by investing in waste management, you will save money. They have tracked organisations that are participating in the Food Waste Reduction Roadmap Initiative, as it's known in the UK, and they've tracked savings of a total of 365 million and saved over £250,000 worth of tons of food going into waste. There's lots of opportunities for reducing waste, so preparing things more effectively. Of course, managing production levels, controlling portion sizes, and cooking to need rather than providing an oversized spread of options. You know, these are all pretty commonplace things to consider. This website here is excellent. The Guardians of Grub website. If you haven't seen it before or had a look, please go and have a look, because it's got lots of ideas of how food waste can be controlled and how it can be reduced. So in terms of tracking waste in PIE, and I think it was Katie, you mentioned this. So the first step really in order to reduce waste is to track it, is to measure it. And that's really what the tool is providing in the PIE system. It provides you with an easy way in order to obtain a baseline of how much waste you're generating. Once you've got a baseline, then what you can do is you can look at initiatives and put those initiatives in place to then track the effectiveness of those initiatives, and then you can roll them out. What we find is some customers, rather than taking the big step to track waste throughout their entire organization, what they do is they pick a particular outlet or a production area and track waste just in that one area. Then they put the initiatives in place, and if those initiatives prove fruitful, what they then do is roll those initiatives out to other areas within their organization. So there's two different types of waste that PIE can track for you. First of all, there's meal prep waste. This is sometimes known as trim waste, and this is effectively the production process. So what you're doing is you're then looking at the food that is being prepared and weighing the waste that is being that's coming out of that preparation process. The other type of waste is known as plate waste or cooked waste. And this is generally after items have been prepared. So this could be things on a buffet counter that you're recording the number of portions that have been thrown away at the end of the day. Okay. In the NHS, they actually do scrape the plates in order to calculate plate waste, which is pretty unusual, but it's they do that at the ward. So they literally weigh the waste of the food that hasn't been eaten in order to assess the overall waste of the cooked waste. But generally, people just look at things that are thrown away that haven't been served. Okay. So how that manifests itself in PIE. So this is the food waste module in PIE. It's part of the reporting module. So these are all modules that are available. And what you're seeing here is the main dashboard page. There's lots of
No problem, Lorraine. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. There's lots of different ways that you can record this, but fundamentally what you're doing is you're creating a record of waste for a particular day. And then once you've recorded that, what the system can do is it can calculate the cost automatically for you. Like I said, because we know the products that you're buying and we know the recipes you've got on the system, you can choose to record the fact that you are wasting a certain weight of a product, and then we can calculate the cost of that product, or you're wasting a number of portions of a product, and then we can calculate the cost. Once you've got all of these records in, what you can do is you can choose a date range, and then using that date range filter, you can then look at the statistics relating to that, and you can download this as well. So you can see, for example, in certain areas throughout the organization, or in certain sittings, or by reason or by type, and then you can get that analysis out of the system. But fundamentally, the idea of this is that you can easily and quickly record food waste, so then it can be analysed as time progresses in order to assess the effectiveness of any initiatives you put in place. Has anyone got any questions on any of that?
No, none for me. Oh, actually, one quick question. If you haven't got all your recipes in, does it not generate figures? Generate kind of?
Yeah, so it depends. If you want to waste a portion of a recipe, then you have to build the recipe in the menu management system in order for the system to understand the constituent ingredients in that one portion, and then it can calculate the price of the value of the items that you're wasting. If you haven't got recipes in the system, you can waste just ingredients. You can just say, I'm wasting, 20 or 200 grams of carrots or whatever, or anything that's been thrown in the bin, or products that you are throwing away. You can also set up waste categories. You can say, actually, as you can see here, this particular customer has set up a waste category called veg trimmings. They put a cost against 1 kilogram of veg trimmings, and then they can record when they throw or when they waste veg trimmings, the system will then calculate the cost according to the weight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing if you're not using a system to do this, then you're doing this on an Excel spreadsheet and collating that at the moment. Is that fair to say?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so the idea of this is, because this is a cloud-based system, anyone can access it. So you would provide access to this module for those people within your organization that require the ability to record waste. They would then log in independently, and the interface where they record waste is very simple. They simply record the date and the time, and then they have the option to record either a product, a recipe, or a category of waste, and then it calculates the cost. They can also add notes to that, and they can add a photo as well if they need to. Any other questions?
Well, that makes sense. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Katie, all good?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Cool. So I'll move on to talk a little bit about CO2e. So CO2e is a measure of food carbon, and what this feature aims to do is to help consumers ultimately make more informed choices about the food they consume. So by providing information about carbon emissions associated with each dish that's being sold, then you can put that information on your menus or or on the counter, and this then raises awareness about climate impact of food production and consumption. And what's been found is that by adding this information, it encourages behavioural changes with regards to the foods that people are consuming. So catering teams can also use this information to create lower carbon dishes. So you'll see that in a few minutes. But as you build the recipe, the system dynamically calculates the carbon emissions related to the food that's being prepared, and that enables them to adjust the menu accordingly. By adding carbon information to the menus, it also demonstrates your commitment to environmental responsibility and sustainability practices within your organisation, which ticks boxes in your sustainability agenda. The CO2e value, for those unaware, that stands for carbon dioxide equivalent, and ultimately it's a measurement of the global warming potential. And as different greenhouse gases, It's a metric that measures and expresses the global warming potential of different greenhouse gases relative to carbon dioxide. And there's lots of different greenhouse gases, and what this CO2e measure allows you to do is to provide a standardized comparison. Okay, so it basically looks at all of the various greenhouse gases and boils it down to a single measurement. In food service, CO2e is a way to measure how much greenhouse gases are released during the creation, production, and transportation and disposal. So it's the whole food cycle of a particular item. It's not just the cooking or preparation. It includes the actual production methods, and the actual calculations get pretty horrific quite quickly, because what you're looking at is the whole production process, including, for example, the feed that's being used to feed the animal, for example, as part of the production. The CO2e measurement identifies which meals have the most significant environmental impacts and where we should concentrate our efforts to support sustainable food production, consumption. And I think, Katie, you got a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you know that level of detail.
Yeah, so we use data source. Okay, we don't dream up these figures because the calculation behind this is very complicated. So,
But how would you know? So, for example, if I had a local supplier,
yeah,
who was, I don't know, he had grass-fed cows.
Yeah.
And how would you know my local supplier was grass-fed cows as opposed to, I don't know what the alternative would be, so forgive me, but I don't know, some supplier elsewhere that wasn't grass-fed. Like, how would you know that information?
So these are indicative values. Okay, and what we do on the system is we have categories that we put products in, and we use the indicative value for each of those categories, because as you've already identified, things get complicated very, very quickly. So what we use is an indicative CO2e value that relates to lamb, for example. Interestingly, the transportation, because you mentioned local produce, the actual transportation is actually a very low contributor in terms of other factors. Yeah,
but
so
what I meant is just depending on the type of supplier. So, for example, local suppliers would know a lot less information about their CO2.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, so
compared to a very large supplier, which is obviously doing this on scale for Sainsbury's or whoever it would be in hospitality equivalent. But do you see what I mean? There is a difference in terms of the supplier base that we would be using, and that's why I was asking the question more about local and global.
Yeah, so we the suppliers themselves don't have this information. This isn't something you could turn around to Brakes and ask them or Bidfood or whoever and say, please, can you provide CO2e information for this particular product? What they're doing is something very similar. They're putting products in categories, and there is using the analysis that's being done, they then are able to provide an indicative CO2e value according to the volume of the mass or volume of the item that's being used. So effectively what we're getting is we're getting a measurement of an indicative CO2e value, and then we're using that to calculate the overall CO2e accordance to the quantity of that product that you're using.
Yeah, just a quick one. It's a good point Katie raises, because you know, if I was to put all this information on my menus, I'd get forensically kind of checked on it. You know, I'm like agricultural university with lots of professors measure schools of sustainable farming and things like that. So it'd have to be pretty robust and stand up to criticism, you know, where that data's been, how it's being calculated.
Yeah,
like what do you pull from a main database source, for example, that we could reference back to, that we
exactly
would say?
That? Yeah, there's a study. It's called the Poor and Nemechek study, which took place in 2018, and it was a meta-analysis. So what they did is they obtained data sources from, I think it was about 130 other studies that had taken place, and it's widely acknowledged as one of the most reliable data sources that you can get for CO2e analysis, and it's that data set that we're using. We also worked in conjunction with colleagues in the States for our parent organisation, Aramark, and they helped us with the consolidation analysis of that data to actually put it into the various categories that we then use on the system. And yeah, we've got information about that. We can provide that level of information to you. So we know that some of our customers that are using this data, they're actually surfacing that data set information to help people understand how it's being calculated.
That would be great if you could share. That'd be brilliant.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So what we try to do with this whole process is ultimately make it easy for consumers to understand, because just by quoting the CO2e value, that's not particularly meaningful unless you're aware of this metric. So what we do for all of the recipes, we categorize the actual recipe into these buckets. So for example, if it's lower than 2.9 0.25 kilograms of CO2e, we categorize that as a dish with a very low CO2e value. And if it's higher than 2.25, it's very high. Okay, and that color coding makes it very easy for consumers to look at a recipe to be able to identify its environmental impact. Looking at how this manifests. So this is a screenshot of the recipe build application. So this is the menu management module. And what we can see here, this is a dish called the African style chicken slaw, and these are products and recipes that have been added to that. This actually has a recipe in it, so you've got a recipe at the top, and these are products. And based upon the amount of the quantity in use, what we're able to do is to calculate the CO2e emission, and then we can take that, divide that by the portion count, and that then gives us our carbon footprint per portion for this dish. Along with the carbon footprint information, we also have the cost calculation, and below this we also have the allergen and nutrition information related to the dish itself. So the idea being with this is you build your recipe using products that are in your inventory. You then specify the amount of each ingredient that you're going to be using, the portion count, and then the system can automatically calculate the CO2e, the costs, and other data related to the recipe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if you're using other systems, this probably looks familiar or similar kind of process. So once we've actually built the recipe, we can also produce a specification sheet download, and just to kind of show you an example of what that looks like. So you can add a photo of the recipe in there. We've got the full nutritional information, the allergen information, and the carbon footprint, along with the ingredients, directions, and HACCP notes, which you can append to recipes as well. So the idea being with this is that this then provides a specification sheet which you can then share internally and make this information available, as I said, on your menus. And that's the end of the presentation on the CO2 side and the wastage side. Has
in terms
anyone...
of the, sorry, I'm already jumping in there, apologies.
No, please.
In terms of the allergen and the CO2, do you have a way for the customers to be able to access this information? Obviously, we don't want them to know what the ingredients are in terms of an ingredient list and the quantity and how to cook it. Yeah. But in terms of that top line information, like up until where you've got your carbon footprint bit,
yes.
Can the customer access it in some way?
Yeah, we do. We have a thing called the Food Checker site, which is configurable within the system, and effectively what this creates is your own microsite. It's been developed and to be used on a phone, and the idea being with it is effectively you decide things like the branding on the microsite. You choose what recipes you want to publish on that site, and the level of information that you want to share. So whether you want to include photos or just allergen information or allergen nutritional. And in addition to that, you can also now share the CO2e values. So the idea being is that the system allows you to produce a QR code. That QR code you put on your menu saying, find out more about our dishes here. Then students can scan that QR code, search for the recipe they want to find out more information about, and then it presents them with that information that they can then browse and have a look at. So that's dynamic as well. And the advantage of that is if the data set changes behind that for any reason, so if we upload a new allergen list or we the costs change, not that you wouldn't surface the cost information, but if the data set changes, then that microsite's data automatically updates. Yeah, so you don't have to manage it in two places, basically.
And in terms of the point of sale products,
yeah,
which I appreciate, you know, it won't be an issue in terms of recipes, i.e. you've got this big calculation behind it, but is there any carbon footprint for those? Do you do any calculations on the carbon for a point of sale item?
Yeah,
as they do appear in hospitality as well as retail.
Yeah, so you talking about individual products, i.e. non-recipe products? So if it's like, you know, a Mars bar or a can of Coke or something like that.
Yeah, anything that
Yeah.
you're going to buy in and sell direct out.
Yeah,
not
so
going to-
you would need to effectively build a recipe for that product if it was something that you wanted to provide CO2 information on those types of products, and then it can calculate that for you.
So if I had a bottle of Coke, say, I would have to
Yeah.
build a recipe for a bottle of Coke.
You would do, I'm afraid. It's
Okay.
really designed for
Hospitality recipes, I know.
yeah,
These
that's
things always
kind
are.
of yeah, that's really
But even within a hospitality environment, we have pre-wrapped cakes. We'll have Coca-Cola in bottles, or we'll have cans of drink, or we'll have bottles of water. And it's just as
Yeah.
important within that environment for us to provide the carbon footprint for those items as much as the recipe items that we do.
yeah. So you
Because
could do
otherwise
that.
you're in a halfway house, and then we get
Yeah, I
questions, well,
understand.
why have you only gone halfway? Like, how
Yeah.
come I can know what my chicken curry's doing, but you can't tell me what my sandwich that I've just purchased out of your chiller is gonna
Yeah.
do?
So the way that it currently works is you would need to build a recipe for those items to calculate that CO2e value. However, you know, we developed the system in-house, and therefore we are always updating it. And in time, what will happen, no doubt, is customers will come to us and say it would be really good if we didn't have to build recipes for these things to establish the CO2e impact. I should say that this functionality is quite new. This is something that we've built within the last few months or 6 months or so now. So it is still being looked at closely, and as we get more feedback, we will continue to improve the functionality that's available. Where I thought you were going to go with that question was to do with Natasha's Law. So for your prepackaged items that you're serving, there is functionality on the system to assist you with Natasha's Law. So you can produce labels on the system that then provide you with the ability to adhere to
Yeah, but that's the
Natasha's
things
Law.
that we're preparing. Something that I'm
Yes.
buying in, there's already a law that covers that, pre-Natasha's
Yes.
law, which dictates it had to have already had the allergen information on it. So
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that. But anyway, it's good to know. I just want to throw it out there.
No, it's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions that you'd like to ask surrounding this functionality?
Is there any clients, any of the unis out there using this to its full potential? You know, singing and dancing.
Michelle?
Yeah, there are a number of universities using pretty much all the functionality. As Matt said, this part of the system is relatively new. We've got University of Birmingham using it currently. In terms of other universities, there's a great deal of interest there. But obviously, as Matt has explained, when you use the system, there's various processes to get to this point. So obviously, when we first onboard a university, it's about using if the university wishes to use the purchase to pay functionality, and then it's kind of building up to then creating the recipes, then using other elements of the system to then start to track the waste. So the kind of building of recipes is hand in hand with waste and the carbon footprint.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and is it I presume it's web-based. Like, for example, you know, you were saying it's developed for an app to use on a phone and what have you. Is there an option to white label it?
So, the Pi application, as you say, it's fully cloud-based. So you only need a browser to run the app, to run the website, and it can be used on a phone or a tablet or laptop, desktop, and it's a responsive design as well. So depending on the device that you're actually using, the page adjusts its format and the presentation of data according to fit. The Food Checker is a standalone website that was designed to be used on a phone. In terms of white labeling the actual product, when you first log on to the website, onto the dashboard page, there's functionality in there that gives you the ability to add your organizational logo onto that, so all users feel like they're at home, they're seeing familiar stuff on that. The dashboard page itself is highly configurable as well, so you can choose what data you're interested in looking at. The various modules throughout the application are also configurable. So, for example, if you've got somebody within your organization that is responsible for building recipes, for example, you can configure the system so that they can only see that module, not necessarily see the finance module. Is that kind of what you meant, David?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's we've got a large number of customers using the Pi application every day, all day long, and as we continue to work closely with our clients, they guide us with regards to the development and what they'd like to see on the system next. So it is constantly evolving and will continue to do so.
And we also have functionality within the system where you can send messages to your users of the system. So in terms of personalizing it to your organization, there's more functionality in there that a lot of our clients are now using to make sure they communicate with other users of the system.
Okay, that's great, thanks.
Obviously, I mean, today we've talked about CO2e and we've talked about waste, and I haven't actually demoed those things to you. More than happy to do standalone sessions with regards to the Pi system or to find out more about the procurement system at all. Happy to do that at a later point if that's of interest.
Yeah, that's great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, look, thank you both for your time today. Really pleased that you could join. If you do have any further questions, then I guess to reach out to yourself, Michelle.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, reach out, and happy to talk more about the Pi system or the particular areas that we've shown you. And thank you for your time.
And if you'd like any introductions to any of our university clients to see how they're utilising the tools in the system, happy to put you in touch with your colleagues, so you can have further conversations if that's something you would like to do. I can certainly facilitate that. We have different clients using the system in slightly different ways. Most universities do go for the purchase to pay environment. So if that's something that you would like to look at and speak to other universities that are using it, again, happy to facilitate those conversations for you.
And would it be possible to share all the slides and everything for us afterwards?
Yes, of course.
By email. That'd be lovely. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you so much to Matt and Michelle for leading on today's session. I'll follow up with David and Katie and just share your details as well, in case anybody does want to get in contact with you. As I say, we've got the recording of the session that will be put onto the members' knowledge base later today as well. But for now, I'll leave it there. But if anybody's got any questions, obviously, I'm sure Michelle will be able to answer shortly. But thank you so much for taking the time out today to lead on the session.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.